Welcome to the Think Factory podcast. We got one question for you. What keeps you up at night?
I'm Chris Santamassimo from OGC Solutions and the host of the podcast today. And I'm excited to speak with Connie Lefferts. Connie is I would say, the ultimate packaging professional who is the president of Creative Packaging Solutions in New Jersey. Welcome to the podcast, Connie.
Thank you, Chris. Good to see you. Looking
Thank
forward
you.
to it.
This is a lot of fun. I always say this, that the best thing about hosting a podcast is that you get to speak to really interesting people who get it. When I say get it, I mean, understand the power of what they do and how that power really impacts their customers in a positive way, hopefully. In your case, it does. And when we got to know each other a little bit, I was so intrigued by what you do when you're creating packaging solutions for your clients, all of the pieces that you put together, and really how important your work is in helping growing companies promote their brands, sell their products, and be successful. So I'd love to have a conversation about some of the things that you do and your thoughts around it.
Well, yeah, I discovered packaging by mistake. Like most people, you walk through the store and you see all the products on the shelf, but you don't realize that there's an entire industry behind the bottles, the jars, the tubes, the boxes. And people make those packaging products. The company, the brand does not. And it
Right.
was surprising to me to discover all this. And when I explained to people that if you look at a soda bottle and assume that the soda company makes it, they don't. They make the products on the inside sometimes, but they're really a brand force. They're behind the brand. They make it happen. They market it. They sell it. But somebody else might make the bottle. Somebody else might make the cap. Somebody else might make the label. And then it's all combined together at the filling location to create the product. And then it goes out to distribution. But when I discovered packaging for the first time as an entity, as a real business, was back in probably the 1990s, early 1990s. So you can imagine that's what, 25, 30, 45 years ago, which is a lot of things have happened in 45 years. We had I ran a sales promotion agency, and we had a customer that was packaging cookies in a paper bag. And the paper bag was crushable. And so it not only was it packaged in paper, but it also had a clear window in the front of it. So when you looked at the cookies, you saw all the crumbs rather than the cookies. And so we did this promotional campaign for them to increase their sales, their distribution, and their market penetration. But we used the packaging as it was because we didn't understand that the packaging was the issue. We ran this campaign. It ran for 6 months. It had success on and off, but by the end of the campaign level, they hadn't increased the sales significantly. The distribution had not increased significantly. We were sitting around the conference table, and I said, no matter what we did for your salespeople, for your chain, anything, we can't increase the sales until you change your packaging. And that's when I discovered the world of packaging. I said, oh, this is a whole business out there that I was not paying any attention to. And I got into it, and we've tried to source. And this is really what intrigued me. We tried to source new packaging for them, and it was darn hard. We couldn't find.
Because they're a small growing brand, and it's not easy to find packaging companies to make things for small brands.
And we didn't know we could buy it in China. We had to buy it in the United States. I mean, that was our mindset. And we didn't have sourcing from the internet at the time, which is hard to believe that in only 45 years, we have now the web and everything else, and chat, GPT, and everything to lead us in packaging. But at the time, all we had was a Thomas Register, which looked like a huge encyclopedia set. green covers, I remember, and the paper was so thin that you could almost read both sides of the paper by looking at it. And it was only companies in the manufacturing in the United States. So we eventually found somebody, and we changed their packaging from a brown paper bag with a sticker on it to a metal box. And our idea to do that was because at the time, a premier can of saltines came in a can versus a box. And we said, well, let's put this premier cookie into a tin can that looked like a cigar box. And that's what we did. And that's what changed their life. And I said, we're in the wrong business. Let's get into the packaging business. So in 45 years, I've been following the packaging from that startup through all kinds of other kinds of manufacturing products.
You know, that anecdote about the cookie company is so interesting because it is maybe the clearest example of how packaging really, I don't know, creates an impression in the mind of the buyer about what's inside. And so a bag full of cookies, they may be great, but you don't sense the greatness just from the paper bag. It's the tin and the time and the effort that you took to create that tin that, well, says to the buyer, hey, there must be something really special in this thing.
And the cookies were special, but you wouldn't know it. Exactly
Right.
your point. You wouldn't know it by the way it was packaged. And they usually were broken, which
Another
which
problem.
really
Yeah.
did deter from the quality of the cookie. So because we changed their packaging, they were able to increase their unit cost, their suggested retail price, and all their sales increased. And so they've never changed their packaging since.
Hmm. That's funny, you know, when you go, I've seen a couple of brands in the stores that go the other direction in terms of creating that sort of folksy homemade impression by using the paper bag, but they figured out a way, I'm assuming, to keep the cookies from getting destroyed. But it's just an example of how the flip side maybe creates that other impression of value in the form of the homemade taste and the kind of cookies that your mom used to make or your grandmother used to make. And I think the psychology around that is so interesting.
It is. I can see why people would do that because the first thing you want when you're marketing stuff is the smell of it too. And that's why real estate people have somebody bake cookies before you come in the house. You're getting that home feeling, that comfort that you get from walking into the aroma of a bakery. And that's why a lot of the restaurants have exhaust fans that push out their flavors into the area. But back into the packaging again. So yes, you can use a paper bag, but you have to be careful. And the cookies have to be manufactured in a way that they're a little less crumbly. They don't break apart as easily.
Right. Well, to maybe take a sort of a broader viewpoint about what you do, Connie, when you're getting together with a new customer and they've got this product or this idea that they're trying to figure out how to bring to market, how does that process work with you and your team? You know, what are the things that you do to help put on the packaging what the idea or the value of the product is, or what the buying signal should be?
If it hasn't been introduced yet, this is the ground floor. It's the best place to get involved with their packaging because, first of all, we have to know, is it a liquid? Does it have any compatibility issues? The chemist needs to be involved with compatibility or stability issues. And we work in both food and beverage, lawn and garden, personal care, cosmetics, household. So we have a wide variety of products that are packaged. So, but the same process works. What is the product? How does it need to be contained? The volume, the capacity. How much are you going to, what market are you going to reach? Are you going to reach the mass market or the prestige market or somewhere in between, which would be the mastique market, so that we know what level of image the packaging needs to convey to the consumer. And then we have a checklist of like a 20-point checklist to help people work through all these questions. So once we have all this information, then we determine the best container, rather it's a bag or a bottle or a jar or a tube, and we send the images to the brand, say, is this what you have in mind? And then we work from there into samples and testing, and then finally the brand we work with the brand and their graphics to develop the graphics for the package.
Do you ever have a situation where a customer is excited about an idea or a brand name, and they bring it to you, and you just say, I hear you, but that's just not going to work, and here's why.
Yes, it has happened.
Yeah.
It
Try
has
not to
happened.
squash the dreams, though. Sometimes. Right?
I know it's tough to sometimes burst a bubble, but yes, it does. It has happened because they have a dream that, for one thing, it's either one thing that happens a lot is they have a dream that they're going to make millions off their launch. They have this great idea, this great product. They're going to package it, put it out there. They're going to sell it at 10 times cost and make millions off their, or thousands at least, off their launch. And that doesn't happen usually. Because many times you have to have the distribution, you have to have the right contacts within your manufacturing, and you need a contract filler to make it, and that's going to add cost.
Yeah, there's a lot of steps in the process. Everything from the idea to the packaging to the fillers or co-packers, whatever it is, for sure. But getting that branding right and the packaging to match it is really a fundamental piece of that process.
Yes, the branding. We don't usually get involved with the exact branding of it because that's the basis of the founder.
Sure.
They have this image, and we can help them develop it and convey it properly. But that's their image, that's their baby. That's what they want to control. We get involved with the actual hard products, the actual container that's going to be printed with the brand.
And so you're able to really bring to bear a variety of packaging that's going to match that imaging and branding. A glass bottle versus a plastic tube, or a box versus a tin. And is there also sort of a cost issue that comes into play, or are founders or new brands, trying to do the best they can, or are they often trying to just, they want something exactly to match whatever's in their head?
Well, if they do want something exactly to match, then we can usually find it.
Right.
And that makes our job a little easier, because then we don't have to work through our presentation, their imagination, and going back and forth to meet what they imagine they want. So it does take a little more effort to come up with a package when they have no idea of how they want it packaged. Sometimes we'll send them to the store and say, walk through the area where you want to be, where you imagine, where you can conceive your product being on the shelf. Walk through the store and see what's on the shelf and see how your product would fit in. Is there a product there that you want to compete against? How does it look? What colors do they use? How big is it? What capacity is it? And then if you like that, we'll try to go with that scheme, or make suggestive changes to it so you stand out a little differently.
And in terms of standing out, how important in your experience are the colors that are chosen for the packaging?
Well, for a long time we were going through a stage where everything was just becoming white and black. I don't know if you remember that, Chris. It was not too long ago, and it was mostly generic or store brands. They were going with the white package, black copy, and now everybody is going for something that will give them more presence, more color. And so it does come back. It does make a cycle, and now we're going with more colors. And it depends upon if it's a personal care product or if it's a food product. There are colors that are good for food and bad for food, and the same for personal care. And it's just how will it be, the image on the shelf, how it would stand out. And remember, these are retail products. They're not going into a warehouse. They're going to somebody's home.
Yeah, some of that black on white, I think, at least from my perspective anyway, what I see in the stores was this, I don't know, going back to the basics or going back to, products that you love and knew back in the day sort of feeling. Like if it was simple and it looked like something that's been around a long time, maybe it's more trustworthy or it's a better product. But I do, and I don't know if that's maybe also reflective of moods in the economy sometimes too. But I do agree, folks, at least what I see is they're using simple designs, but a lot of sort of accent colors to catch attention. So you might have some of that white and black, but you've also got a lot of accents that are supposed to grab your eye from the shelf.
And that can be done with different decorating techniques, foils, UV, hit UV, spot UV to give it a gloss. There's techniques, and that would be mostly on board or on bottles as well, for the hot stamping, or cold foil too. The printing techniques are expanding all the time. And, I remember when we first came out with digital printing, before that, when in cartons, when the only thing you could do was offset print, and somebody figured out a way, it started converting small digital machines to commercial sized digital machines. I was searching all over the country for anyone who had installed a digital printer. I even called, I can't think of the name of the manufacturer, called a manufacturer to find out where they had installations so I could talk to them about being able to print, because most of our customers are not running 50,000 at a time. We're
Right.
working with startup companies or small to medium-sized companies, people that are under 10 mil or mid-cap companies. And they need small 5,000, 10,000 piece runs. And we're going with a 5,000 piece run. We can run it on a digital machine, and we can run it without plate costs. Once
Right.
you go above 5,000, we're talking offset or flexo in labels, and we need to change. And we start having plate charges and die charges and everything else to get the package out the door.
When you speak about dyes, too, one thing that's great about digital printing is the ability to do sort of ink-based embellishments where you can create the raised images, for example, just by additional layers of ink on some of the machines. And so the creativity, I think, the ability to express the creativity on the package really is almost infinite now, thanks to that technology development.
There was pushback in the industry when they first came out with the digital. Oh, the quality is not there. You won't be happy. Stay with what you have. Don't go with all the changes, the SKU changes and SKU changes and all of that. Just stay with what you have and run a bigger job. No, people want the smaller runs, and you can be now as you mentioned, the digital presses can do a lot more than they could when they first launched.
Yeah, and there's almost no setup time in many cases other than to put the media on the machine. Other than that, you're good to go, and you don't have to. The setup time is just it's almost non-existent now. But it's great for small brands, as you say, that need small lots at a time, and they'll grow as they go, but they need small lots, or else they're just not going to be able to start business.
Small brands require, if you get above 5,000 quantity, it's best to go with another printing technique because the unit costs come down.
For sure. Do you see, now I know you mentioned food and beverage and household and personal care products. When you talk about lawn and garden, I think you also do pet and vet products as well. Is the process the same for those other types of customers, or is the process of picking the right packaging just about the same?
Basically, it's the same because it's still a consumer product, whether it's
Right.
used on a dog or on a human. It's still a consumer product. It has to make a peel at the shelf. It
Right.
has to maintain and protect the goods, the product inside, and it has to be shelf stable.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And then, when you talk about a lawn and garden product having to catch someone's eye on a shelf, that's even harder, I think, in sort of a Home Depot or Lowe's environment where, things are on these warehouse shelves and not so easy to see sometimes. So you want that product really to stand out in a pretty crowded marketplace.
And stacked too. They're usually, you're talking about a flexible bag, which is stacked on the shelf. You're not going to see the brand. So you really, the point is get it off the shelf and get it home and make a difference in how it's used in the home, how it's dispensed in the home, make it easy to use, and the product itself then becomes the primary.
Now, I know you also get involved in the engineering of the container, and you've got some creative personnel. What kind of addition to the process do those folks make on your team?
Well, we offer stock, or it's not in stock molds, stock tooling. And many times it just doesn't meet the demands of the product. They just want a different shape, a different profile, a different capacity. So we have to build a custom tool to make the container. And then the engineering comes in to make sure that the wall thickness, that the product will stand up, if it's a rigid container, and
Right.
all the engineering that's involved, and the finish on the neck, which is the opening of the bottle,
Right.
that has to be perfect. Otherwise, you have leaking.
Yeah, and it's obviously important for lots of reasons. And I think you do some work when it comes to the fragrance area too, right?
Yeah, I love fragrance. Not just the fragrance world, but I love to work in fragrance because the people who are in that industry are very ingredient intense. They're very ingredient aware. They know exactly what they want their fragrance to evolve and to evoke when you're using it, the top notes, the bottom notes, everything. So they're very intimately involved with what the container must look like, because it's part of the image of their entire brand. And sometimes they want something that is so unique that it takes time to develop it, but yet the rewards are there. It's the decorating, the shape, the embellishments. It's just a fascinating world. And then you have the secondary packaging to go with it, besides the glass.
I was going to say you're probably dealing more with glass and labels in that space, and then of course you got the box that it goes into. But yeah, talk about multi levels of creativity that's involved and a lot of planning just to get the product to market.
Yeah, the fragrance. It sometimes it's labeled, many times it's direct printed.
Mm-hmm.
And then because it is glass, there's always a secondary, some form of secondary packaging to protect it in the shipping, and to put all the ingredient list and everything, which has to be on the package somewhere.
Right.
You don't want it on the glass, so you put it on the secondary. Which secondary could be a folding carton, a rigid gift set box. We've even done drawstring cotton bags, which is you have to use a tag with that one because you can't get all the ingredient list on the bag.
Right.
But we've done a lot of different things in fragrances or oils.
As I said, I can understand why you love it so much because of all the little elements that go into making sure that it comes out right and it creates the right impression. Maybe to sort of close this out today, Connie, what are some of the ideas and things that you can share with emerging brands as they're trying to take a concept and operationalize it, make a product, and pick the right packaging. what's other than working directly with you, what are some of the things they should be thinking about before they even have the conversation around how we're going to package this thing?
My thought and my suggestion to the brand would be understand your market, because you're putting so much effort behind the development and the launch of a brand. Make sure that you have a market that is open and will receive your product with sales. Make sure that you do the market research ahead of time to know which market you want to approach, and the price points that you can realistically achieve by doing your own research first. That would be my best suggestion to them.
Yeah, because hopefully you're thinking about the right brand name, trademarks, all of those preparatory things before we start talking about spending a bunch of money to get your first run of packaging, right?
Absolutely. And we love for someone to come to us with their deck. They've already worked it out, what they want their brand to look like. They have the market study. They have colors selected, and they come in with a deck and say, this is our image. This is what our branding agency has created for us. That makes our path much faster and easier for them.
Because you're able to get into their head and the head of the marketing agency, right, to be able to conceptualize what they put in the deck. This is really fascinating. I think what you do is obviously so important to your customers, but it really brings to bear the psychology behind packaging and what it's going to take to make a product successful. Because you could have the best product that just is put in the wrong box or the wrong container and doesn't get the attention it deserves. So congratulations on helping lots of companies get to the point where they're successful. And I know when we talked earlier, you said that often your customers are so successful they get acquired.
That has happened.
Yeah.
Very proud of them, because we feel like we were there at the birth. We were there and we watched them grow. Yep. And sometimes it takes 10 years. It has taken 10 years, sometimes less, but I would say in about 10 years that the brand can then start thinking about an acquisition. As long as they have the sales, the incremental sales of the growth with those 10 years.
Yeah, there's a lot that happens after the packaging for sure, but at least you're putting them in a spot from which they could succeed.
I hope so. That's our intent.
Well, Connie, you were a delight. I really appreciate the chance to share some ideas, but I'd love to have you let people know how they can reach you.
My email address is conil@packaging-usa.com. Connie L@packaging-usa.com. I'm also on LinkedIn.
Terrific. Well, I would encourage folks that are doing what we talked about today, that is trying to launch a product and be successful, that they ought to have a conversation with you. This was really helpful and really instructive. So thanks for the opportunity.
You're welcome. My pleasure, Chris. Nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you. So this has been the Think Factory podcast. Again, spending time today with Connie Lefferts from Creative Packaging Solutions in New Jersey. I'm Chris Santomassimo from the podcast and from OGC Solutions, and we'll see you next time.